Hello everybody, welcome to COP29 here in Azerbaijan. We are live here on Euronews. We're talking about how you improve your city. We know the cities are under intense pressure because they need to drive down emissions. Those people, things like floods, heat waves, wildfire, all kinds of risks as the planet moves. So I'm here with some regional and city leaders from Europe who are going to be telling us about the initiatives they've got on the way, the efforts they have, the challenges they're facing. Let me introduce them. Nina Rattalainen from Turku City Council in Finland. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for being with me.
Andries Grifoy, who is a member of the Flemish Parliament. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And
Welcome.
Josko Kisevic, I hope I pronounced that right, who is the president of Zagreb City Council. Thanks for being with us. When you saw what happened in Valencia, what did you think?
How to help Valencians, and I don't want that to happen to Zagreb, to my city. That was my first thought.
Have you had floods, though? Things like that already?
We had a terrible storm a year ago, which devastated the city, really. It inflicted a heavy damage on private and city property. So we realized very quickly something has to be done. And I have to say, the first step in ensuring that your city is climate resistant is to have at least minimum citizens and maximum politicians not denying climate change. It goes, and it goes for both sides of Atlantic, you know. Oh yeah, so people should not deny climate change impact on our lives and our cities. And we still have many skeptics, I have to say. We have many skeptics. Once you have that, you need to collect data, analyze the data, and then start planning. In Zagreb, we have something called integrating index on climate action, where we measure, you know, how we are well in this area. So we see how many projects are climate proof, how many money we allocated in budget, how many education we had for our civil servants who work for city administration, what kind of strategic documents we had. So everything is on one table. We are analyzing that because we need to approach it in a systematic and a comprehensive way.
Big effort, Andries, in Flanders. What was the reaction to what happened in Valencia? What was in your mind when you saw that?
Well, in the first place, we felt very sorry for these people. This is awful. If you have so many people killed, this is, you know, you don't want it in.
Right?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And we had also a water bomb in the southern part of Belgium in summer 21. Yeah. But you know, this was at that time water. And here it was mud. This is crazy. Yeah.
Nina?
Well, I think my initial reaction and something that I have been thinking a lot lately is that climate crisis, it's not anymore something in future. It hasn't been that for some time. It's something that we experience now in the cities and regions. It leads to so much human suffering, so much loss and damage throughout Europe, throughout cities and regions, and we are in a very tough space at the moment, and that's why we need to collect our energy, our ambition together as cities and regions and citizens to do better in mitigation and adaptation.
And the regional leaders are under a lot of pressure there in Valencia, a lot of criticism as well. What would you say would be the kind of lessons, watching from a distance as you are in Finland, what are the kind of lessons you're taking away also from that, saying this crisis management, the post-event, etc.? Are there things where you're thinking, we need to learn from that already?
Well, I think that crisis preparedness is very crucial and very important, that we have been doing our risk management portfolio and planning ahead, and like colleagues said, you have to know beforehand what are the expected risks. Then again, of course, we can't know for sure.
No, that's the thing. I was just going to say, you go outside the expectations.
Exactly.
That's constantly happening.
We know the things that might be happening, but to what extent, that's the question maybe. And I think one answer, one thing that we also have to work with more, I think, is multi-level action and cooperation between subnational citizens and the state. You have to be very, very coordinated and all doing the same thing, and you have to have very clear vision who is working on what, and you have to come together.
What would you say would be the lessons that you've learned, what you've seen unfold?
Disaster management and disaster communication. And you know, now I have the feeling that the two levels are blaming each other. And you know, these people are in trouble. You don't have them to blame between levels. I'm a really regionalist. But at the end, you have to help the people. And if you have to do that together, then we have to do that together. That is very important.
Belgium is, let's say, a fractured country. It is a complicated place when it comes to its politics and its regions, etc. But and if that kind of thing happens, is Belgium ready for it from an administrative point of view?
We have learned a lot after the terrorist attack in the airport some years ago. At that moment, the crisis management and the crisis communication was not so okay, so they learned a lot about that. And then we approved during COVID time, and now with the last water bond that we had in July, this was already, let us say, much better. But this is important because, you know, these local people are not interested if the help or the responsibility is coming from this level or from another level. They just want to be helped.
They just want help.
Yeah.
Where would you think the vulnerabilities are now in Flanders in terms of the administrative side that Nina was talking about? Where are the bits where you're not sure it would actually work very well when it came to a serious flood moment, or could be something else? It could even be a fire. I mean, the temperatures getting so crazy that could happen also in Flanders. Where are the fault lines?
If you see, for example, everything what has to do with the fireware, no, the fire people, the fire department. In fact, they are under the competence of the federal level, but they're also under the competence of the mayor. So the mayor has here a very important role because he is the closest to the people and he sees what's happening. And so he has then, let us say, make the link with the regional or with the federal level and make that they sit together. And we have plans for that.
They've definitely got each other's telephone numbers, is what you're saying.
Yeah. They have plans for that, so they started the whole, let us say, the whole chain of they sit together, etc. But in the first step, we are looking to the mayors because they are the closest to it.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and they know what's really going on. Tell me, what's the experience in Croatia? A different structure in terms of the administration, etc. Where are the weak points, do you think, when you look at disaster management, crisis management related to climate change effects?
I have to say, I mean, the lessons from Valencia for us was as well, extreme weather conditions do not happen to faraway cities. It can happen to you, and it happened in Zagreb last summer. The expectations of the citizens are huge. They want a city administration to resolve the issue quickly, immediately now. It's impossible. It's really impossible. So what we realized is you need to prepare yourself to the maximum possible extent. But equally, you need to educate your citizens in crisis management. Because everybody needs to behave in a proper way if you want to minimize the management.
Following instructions and being clued into the messages they're going to receive.
That's for sure. But even before that, before crisis struck, we need, to educate citizens how to behave. So this is something which, after the storm, we can intensify. It's very important.
Can you give me an example of what you mean? What do you mean about how to behave? What would be an example?
But for example, during the earthquake, which we had as well 2 years ago, some of the citizens stayed in the apartment houses. Some of them wanted to use elevators. You don't do that. Yeah. So but people didn't know that. So you need to really tell them how to behave during the crisis, and it's very helpful. And then you realize you can't do it alone. So you need international or at least intercity assistance. You don't have that money, equipment, to resolve the problem, to tackle all the issues. So you need certain assistance.
But are you confident that you've got the correct contacts to say, call the neighbouring country even maybe and say, we need help on this fire or we need help on this situation? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, exactly. I did it, and being a member of the European Committee of the Regions helped me to really meet mayors from, for example, Slovenia or Hungary. Yeah. So I called them and they said trucks, they said equipment.
But that's what happened with Slovenia, right? Slovenia called on the neighbours.
Yes. And we intervened as cross, we provide assistance.
The other thing that's in citizens' minds, though, is money. Because you talk about these things, we know things like fire prevention is incredibly expensive, all the equipment is expensive. When you talk about floods and you're building new water courses, for example, what they're doing in Slovenia at the moment in order to flood-proof their country as much as they can, that's expensive too. Where does money come from for climate adaptation? How does that go down in conversations in Turkey City Hall, for example? Do people say we don't need to do that, or do they say we haven't got enough money, or what? How do you establish priorities? How does it work?
You know, we've been doing climate policy work for quite a long time, and I think we've made unanimous decisions in our city council for our carbon neutrality target, which is 2029, by the way. Nowadays, we have done it unanimously, and citizens are on board quite well, actually, for real. And I would say that it doesn't require more money to make climate-proof city. You just have to put the money in the energy efficiency, building structures, flood-proofing. It doesn't have to cost more. You just have to use the money wisely, and you have to have a green city planning. You have to have climate budgeting. We have to turn our whole mindset in our cities, be it climate mitigation, adaptation, resilience. We have to change our healthcare system in a way that we also give information and make prevention, because not all the disasters are very sudden and very happening in one day. For example, in our city in Turku, we have experience of extreme heat. You wouldn't expect to suffer from
it.
Yes,
it's not famous
you would
for
not.
being warm, let's be honest.
No, yes, if we're being honest, but still this happens, and it's something that we have to communicate with our people, especially the vulnerable people, elderly people, that this is very dangerous. This is how you can prevent the risks.
For example, what's your temperature point where you would say red alert in Turkey, it's too hot?
Well, you know, it depends also on the people, because when it comes to vulnerable people, when it comes to people with disease, elderly people, it is rather low. You need to cover yourself during daytime. You need to have hydration. Our healthcare system needs to.
Or something, it could already be starting to
Yes,
happen.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because, for example, when the heat is prolonged, it affects people a lot, and you have to. I think people deserve to know also. It's not just to educate people and give them stuff, but people have the right to know how to survive.
Let's talk about this money question, because I'm sure Belgium is where you're from in Flanders, not necessarily as wealthy perhaps as some of the places. I imagine that Turkey is a relatively wealthy place. It does okay.
We do experience budget cuts.
How does it go down when you want to talk about climate change?
First of all, we look what are the competences on the different levels. For example, on the city level, we tried now already for 5 years that we ask the cities on the mitigation part, please at least save energy in your own real estate.
Right.
Your own real estate. As giving a good example to your citizens. Do something about their own transport system if you have. Some cities have, some of the cities doesn't have. Look for green spots in your village or your city. Yeah? These are all things that you can do. Invest more in cycle lanes. Invest more, for example, in charging points. Invest more in trees. You know, that's all little things that you can do, which are very tangible.
Yeah, they're noticeable. People see it, don't they?
Yeah,
So
and which people understand very well. Maybe they don't link that to, let us say, climate change, but at least they link that to having more comfort. They find it normal that you save energy. Certainly, after the war that we had with Russia, Ukraine, the price will go up, etc. So people are aware about that, and that's the reason why they say, okay, well, my city hall is nice. Why I don't do that by myself? Yeah. So this is not about climate, the whole holistic work, but it's more like, okay, well, you know, it's nice that I have green spots in my city, etc.
So
But if you're talking, for example, about the Blue Deal that we have, the Blue Deal where we try to give water more space, and let's say when we have floodings, that we have
because
more.
you have problems with tidal surges, or with,
Yeah, we have flooding sometimes, and for example, we have floodings because when it rains a lot in France, all the water is coming through Flanders, or when we have a lot of snow water coming from Austria, coming through Germany, Netherlands comes through Flanders, so we have sometimes floodings without that we have rain. So this is not a project which is connected with the city. This is a project which is connected on the region level. So then it's the region who is investing, and for example, for the Blue Deal, where we talk about 300 million euros a year, where we are creating a lot of things, but then you're in the adaptation part.
But do you find it difficult to justify that kind of expenditure? If you're talking door to door with regular people in Flanders, I understand that they would see, yeah, we've got a new bike lane or we've got some electric car charging. That makes sense, and people will accept that as a municipal expenditure. but other things, high-level things, maybe emergency management systems, do they criticise the expenditure on that, or
No.
do they see it as a good thing?
No, they see that as a good thing, and of course, I don't like the words like happy that this happens, but we had, for example, Valencia, we had our own water bomb, so we had seen around us a lot of problems, and then people want that we invest in that kind of systems.
On the doorstep, when you talk to local citizens, what are their concerns about climate change and these risks? What do they say to you?
Well, in fact, if I have to go to let's say, the normal people, and I want to involve them, I don't talk always about climate change. I just talk about the floodings which are there, and the heat which is there, and that we have to solve this problem.
Because you could turn into get some of the skepticism that he's talking about, you mean?
Yeah, and it's very tangible.
Right. Yes. Okay.
It's very tangible.
Yeah.
When it's too hot, for example, then it's tangible. And then
Yeah.
say, okay, I will keep a tree for you that you can sit under the tree. Yes, they say we have shadow.
Yeah.
And then we have floodings. They say, okay, we will do this and this. But don't talk to these people about climate change, etc. That's for these people too holistic. But make it very tangible.
Well, what are you doing in Zagreb? I mean, this sounds interesting. That's a good argument too.
Right. I mean, what we do, we really allocated a huge portion of money in our budget for projects which are directly linked to climate change adaptation. For example, public lighting. We are modernizing completely public lighting, or we map completely the roofs of the houses in our city in order to find what are these suitable roofs for installing solar panels. So there are many. We have smart transportation, solutions. So in order to minimize congestion and this emission of CO2 in the atmosphere. So many projects which we consider now not just climate related, but development related. Right. This is the way how we want really to develop. And citizens are accepting them more and more because we are approaching them in different way. We are not going to them to say, no, you should not do this or that. But look, this is opportunity for you for a better life. Yeah. So they're more receptive, when we are kind of changing the way how to approach citizens.
But is there a conflict, at least when it comes to money, between spending on things like preparation for resilience against flooding or heat waves or whatever, and, as you say, the energy transition things that you need to do, which are expensive, like charging points, etc., etc. You can't do both, can you?
Well, if I just give an example, we had a very, let us say, fiscal system for electrical cars. And so people are buying electrical car, or for example, they're buying solar panels, not because of the climate, but because of the money. Right. So if you then say, we stop with it, then say, oh, that's a pity because I just want to buy an electrical car. And if you ask, why are you buying an electrical car? Because of the money. So they never said because of the climate. But the flooding, there's something very tangible. If it's at your door, the flooding, or when it's too hot outside, that's very tangible. And if you can find that kind of solutions to give them comfort, then they accept it, and then you can spend money on that. So we have to change our narrative.
As a Finnish person, I always imagine Finnish people being all kind of calm and you always voted the happiest country in the world. Do you get conflicts on these issues, or does everybody in Turkey kind of go, yeah, we need to be climate neutral, we need to drive down emissions, we need to start riding our bikes and behaving well, etc., etc. So they just accept it.
Well, as said, our decisions have been unanimous, so I think it's pretty remarkable.
Wow.
But of course, there is climate skepticism, there is climate denialism, and when, of course, when we have experienced economic strains, people, of course, ask questions: where do we invest our money? But as said, we are quite convinced that climate-proofing your city doesn't have to be more expensive than what we would normally do in a fossil industry city or something like that. But so it doesn't have to be that way. And also, what colleagues have explained, I think most of the sustainability projects also make the cities more pleasant. So people do want to live in more pleasant
Not when you're
cities.
doing the roadworks in the process of digging something up, but once you get there, then they're normally happy that you did it, right?
Yes, absolutely. But that is also we have to take some pressure as the decision makers. That is also our job. And I would also like to raise something up because we talk very often about very physical structures, but our youth in our city have also raised up climate anxiety, and we try to also touch these issues and communicate with people and invite them also to work with us. Then we invite also businesses to work with us because climate proofing the city and sustainable future is also good for the economy.
And you want to get to net zero by when?
2029.
How are you going to measure that?
Actually, we are using the European Union SECAP map, and so we are using the same framework that most of the cities use in the European Union, and we have been able to actually reduce emissions to quite large extent. Next year,
planting a lot of trees?
We have
You've
been...
already got trees, I guess.
Yeah, but you know, mostly it's about changing your energy system to renewable energy, and also transportation. That's the difficult part. That's where we need to do more stuff, but we are creating more bicycle lines. Of course, it's carbon sinks, but it is about renewable energy. And from the 1990 level of emissions, we have been able to reduce. Next year, it will be 75%.
That's very good.
So if we will be as fast as we are planning to, we will be there. We already had one carbon neutrality target before, but because we were going forward so fast, we had to bring it from 2040 to 2029. This is also my testimony of the cities that are more ambitious than the states.
Are you going to beat Copenhagen then? They want to be net zero soon. Don't they want to be the first ones? Are you going to beat them? Or
I'm sure we will beat them.
I've heard that they plan not to, or to skip this target.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they have a huge problem.
What's that?
It's a cost, it's an investment.
Yeah.
So I've heard that they will say, you know, sometimes, you know, Flanders is flat, so we have no hydropower. We have a lot of people, 6.5 million people. We have a huge chemical cluster industry. So it's very difficult to go to zero net. Well, 2029 is impossible for us, so we are hoping for 2050 being climate neutral.
But it's more hoping than anything else at the moment.
Well, you will see. It's you know, it's also working in the two ways. For example, we try to invest in CO2 capture, but because we have this chemical cluster, so in fact it's possible to do over there. But we are still blocked with European legislation. Are we allowed or not allowed to do it? Because then we can, for example, produce blue hydrogen. But at the moment, blue hydrogen is not so in favor for the European Commission. They prefer more green hydrogen. So we are also struggling with everything that's coming from top to down. But yeah, why Denmark said, or Copenhagen said, no, for us it's not possible anymore. They also, for example, they want to build some offshore, make a connection with our energy island. It's also...
What does a resilient, climate resilient, basically super clean, super green Zagreb look like? What's your kind of vision for what this place ends up looking like?
Right, of course. You
It's a
need
beautiful city. You're not going to knock it all down and start again, are you? You need to insulate all of those buildings. You need to get the energy use right down to zero.
right. It's a process. Definitely, it's a long process to become really climate resilient. But the important thing is that you have a right legislation in place. For example, in Zagreb, we enacted rules for that every building must have elements of green infrastructure. We
On the new buildings.
new buildings and the old ones which we are going to renovate.
Okay.
They need to be renovated in accordance with certain rules. Then we will check every city project against the climate resistance resilient policy. You know, so there is methodology developed. How we are going to do that? We are educating our people as much as we can. This is very important for them to start to think in these terms. So there are many things how you can do it. Spatial plans. You need really to have spatial plans which are climate friendly. I'm not speaking just of greenery, but everything you are going to build must make sense in the context of climate change. So that's how we approach.
It's a big job though, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, it's
Almost a big job.
Yeah, it's like you said, for the new buildings and everything what is renovated, no problem. But the problem is, for example, elderly people from 80 years old still living in their house. Well, it's not such a good house in terms of energy efficiency. But they say, why should I invest? Because maybe in 5 years I'm not there anymore, so why should I invest? So they are waiting. Yeah? So this whole part of old buildings, apartments, that's a problem. Transport, well, it's going in the good direction. Industry, it's sometimes depending, but it's like I said, everything what is built new, that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's the whole history that you have to also to renovate.
This legacy.
Yeah.
For sure. But you're going to get there soon.
We are going to get there soon, and we are just in the verge of being 100% renewable energy reliant also. So we are quite there, I think. And of course, we need to do stuff. And I'm not sure, if carbon neutrality it's not enough. You have to be climate positive after that, because climate crisis isn't it's not over when we are carbon neutral.
Sure. The world keeps on warming, and the risks carry on being
exactly.
But they can also make your city or your village climate neutral. For example, if you don't insulate the buildings, but you put electrical heating in, and then you have your windmills and the solar panels, well, the problem is solved if you find also a problem for the storage. But it's not working like that, because in our region we doesn't have enough renewable energy because we doesn't have the space.
Right.
So we are still depending on a part of fossil, hydrogen, I don't know what, but we need something, we need these green molecules and not only the green electrons. And this makes it more difficult.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's a massive challenge. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much, and good luck going back to your parts of Europe and trying to go on this transition. Please let us know what you think on our social media channels. What's happening in your town, in your city, in your region? What are the mistakes? What are the cool things that are happening? Share your ideas. We'd love to hear from you on Euronews. And please follow us across all social media and Euronews.com for the latest news about what's happening in Europe.